Imagine a land where the snow-capped mountains of the Hindu Kush cast their shadows over fertile valleys, where caravans from Persia and Central Asia wound their way into India, and where Buddhist monks, Greek settlers, and Indian kings all left their mark. This land was Gandhāra, a civilization that thrived for more than a millennium, bridging east and west and giving the world an artistic and spiritual legacy that still shapes how we imagine the Buddha today. The Gandhāra civilization existed in what is now northern Pakistan and Afghanistan, from the middle of the first millennium BCE to the beginning of the second millennium CE. During those long centuries, empires rose and fell, armies invaded, and cultures collided. Yet, through it all, Gandhāra remained a vibrant center of trade, religion, and, above all, art. It was here that Buddhism fused with Hellenistic aesthetics to create one of the most remarkable artistic traditions in history, the Gandhāra style. It was here that Greek sculptors, influenced by Alexander the Great's campaigns, helped craft the first iconic images of the Buddha, shaping how billions would imagine him for centuries to come. But to understand Gandhāra, we must first understand the land itself. The extent of Gandhāra, land of fragrance, land of waters. The name Gandhāra is ancient, with roots going back to the time of Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenid Empire around the 6th century BCE. Ancient texts tell us that Gandhāra was a satrapy, a tribute-paying province under Persian rule. Yet its true shape, its mountains, valleys, and cities, became known to us largely thanks to the great Chinese Buddhist pilgrim Xuanzang, who traveled through the region in the 7th century CE. By his time, Gandhāra's golden age had faded, but its ruins still spoke of past glory. Gandhāra proper was not an immense empire, but rather a triangular tract of land roughly 100 kilometers east to west and 70 kilometers north to south. It lay mainly to the west of the Indus River, stretching into the fertile Peshawar Valley, and surrounded by the imposing hills of Swat, Dir, Buner, and Bajor. This was a land of crossroads, protected yet accessible, watered by rivers and marshes that in the rainy season could look like vast lakes. The very name Gandhāra may reflect this geography. Some scholars suggest it means land of fragrance, while others believe it means land of waters, derived from the old word for pools and springs. Both interpretations capture the essence of the region, a place both fertile and enchanting, scented by its fields and blessed with life-giving rivers. Beyond Gandhāra proper stretched what some call Greater Gandhāra, territories under its cultural influence. These included the Kabul Valley in Afghanistan, the Potwar Plateau in today's Punjab province of Pakistan, and at times even Sindh in the south. In places like Mohenjo-daro, stupas from Gandharan Buddhism were built atop ruins that dated back to the Indus Valley civilization, showing the layers of history that overlapped here. At the heart of Gandhāra stood its cities, Taxila, known today as Taxila, a renowned center of learning, Purushapura, today's Peshawar, a seat of Kushan power, and Pushkalavati, near modern Mardin. These cities bustled with merchants, monks, artists, and kings. Their ruins, scattered across the valleys, still whisper the story of Gandhāra, the political history of Gandhāra, a land of conquerors. If Gandhāra was a land of fragrance and waters, it was also a land of conquerors. Over the centuries, no fewer than 9 great powers ruled here, each leaving its imprint. The Achaemenids of Persia, 6th to 4th centuries BCE, the Macedonian Greeks under Alexander, 4th century BCE, the Mauryan Empire of India, 4th to 3rd centuries BCE, the Indo-Greeks of Bactria, 3rd to 2nd centuries BCE, the Scythians of Central Asia, 2nd to 1st centuries BCE, the Parthians, 1st century CE, the Kushans, 1st to 5th centuries CE, the White Huns, 5th to 6th centuries CE, the Hindu Shahis, 9th to 10th centuries CE, and finally, the Muslim conquests of the medieval era swept the last remnants of Gandhāra into history. The Achaemenids and Alexander the Great. When Gandhāra first enters recorded history, it is under the Achaemenid Persians. Cyrus the Great incorporated it into his empire, and for nearly 2 centuries, Gandhāra paid tribute to Persia. But in 327 BCE, Alexander the Great arrived at its gates. Alexander, fresh from conquering Persia, sought to expand into India. Gandhāra was the natural corridor. Here, in Taxila, the local king Ambi welcomed Alexander, offering him alliance against his rival, the proud Raja Porus. The stage was set for the famous Battle of Hydaspes, where Alexander's army clashed with Porus's war elephants. Though Alexander triumphed, his stay in Gandhāra was brief. He moved south along the Indus, and soon after his death in 323 BCE, much of his empire dissolved. Yet his legacy endured. Greek soldiers, craftsmen, and settlers remained in Gandhāra, intermarrying with locals and sowing the seeds of a cultural fusion that would bloom in Gandharan art. The Mauryan Empire and Ashoka, the Great. By 316 BCE, the Indian king Chandragupta, Maurya swept into the Indus Valley, annexing Gandhāra into his empire. Taxila became a provincial capital. His grandson, Ashoka the Great, left an even deeper imprint. As governor of Taxila before becoming emperor, Ashoka witnessed the cultural vibrancy of Gandhāra. After his conversion to Buddhism, he built monasteries and stupas across the land. The great Dharmarajika stupa at Taxila, said to enshrine relics of the Buddha himself, was one of his works. Under Ashoka, Buddhism spread far beyond India, and Gandhāra became a vital hub on that spiritual journey. Indo-Greeks, Scythians, and Parthians. Yet Gandhāra was not to remain Indian for long. Around 184 BCE, Demetrius, king of the Greco-Bactrian kingdom, invaded. He refounded Taxila as Sirkap, a city built on the Hippodamian grid plan, with straight streets and stone walls. Here, Greek temples stood beside Indian shrines and Zoroastrian fire altars. A true cosmopolitan society. The Scythians followed, nomads from the steppes of Central Asia who swept into Punjab around 110 BCE. Then came the Parthians, who ruled in the 1st century CE. One of their kings, Gondophares, is even linked by tradition to the Apostle Thomas, who is said to have visited Taxila, a reminder of how diverse Gandhāra's religious life had become. The Golden Age, the Kushan Empire. If Gandhāra had many masters, none shaped it more profoundly than the Kushans. Migrating from Central Asia in the 1st century CE, the Kushans made Purushapura, modern Peshawar, their capital. Their empire stretched from Central Asia deep into India. Under King Kanishka the Great, Buddhism flourished anew. Gandhāra became a magnet for pilgrims and scholars. Monasteries dotted the valleys, stupas rose skyward, and art reached its peak. It was in this era that the Buddha was first depicted in human form, drawing on Greek sculptural traditions, serene, robed, with a halo and calm smile. This fusion, the meeting of Greek naturalism and Indian spirituality, is Gandhāra's greatest gift to the world. Decline, Huns, Hindus, and Muslims. But golden ages never last. In the 3rd century CE, Gandhāra fell under Sasanian Persian control. Soon after, the Kiddarite Little Kushans held sway, until the White Huns stormed in during the 5th century. Brutal and destructive, they shattered monasteries and hastened Buddhism's decline. By the 9th century, Gandhāra was under the Hindu Shahis, and by the 11th, Muslim conquerors swept through. Buddhism, once dominant here, had long since migrated eastward into Central Asia, China, and beyond. Gandhāra faded from memory, its cities buried, its art lost, until rediscovered in the 19th century by archaeologists. Gandharan art and architecture, a fusion of worlds. What truly makes Gandhāra unique is its art. From the 1st century BCE to the 5th century CE, Gandhāra produced thousands of sculptures, reliefs, and stupas. The Buddha was the centerpiece, calm, compassionate, eternal. Around him, stories of his life unfolded in carved stone: his birth at Lumbini, his renunciation of worldly life, his enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree, his first sermon, and finally, his parinirvana. But these were not purely Indian images. The folds of the Buddha's robe recall Greek togas. His wavy hair, bound in the Ushnisha, reflects Hellenistic style. Bodhisattvas, in contrast, appear as princely figures, adorned with jewelry and crowns, echoing Persian and Indian nobility. The stupas of Gandhāra, too, tell a story of fusion. Circular or square bases, crowned with domes, harmikas, and parasols, they were decorated with reliefs of myth, devotion, and everyday life. Monasteries, or sangharamas, became entire complexes, with kitchens, storage rooms, bathing halls, and cloisters, living worlds where monks prayed, studied, and debated. Daily life in Gandhāra. Beyond kings and monks, Gandhāra was a land of bustling cities. Taxila's bazaars sold goods from across Asia. Silk from China, spices from India, horses from Central Asia, and glassware from Rome. Travelers came and went: merchants, scholars, pilgrims, soldiers. Greek temples, Buddhist stupas, Hindu shrines, and Zoroastrian sanctuaries all coexisted, showing a society far more diverse than we often imagine in the ancient world. Legacy of Gandhāra. Though Gandhāra declined, its influence radiated outward. Buddhist pilgrims carried Gandharan art to Central Asia, China, and eventually Japan. Every serene image of the Buddha we see today carries within it something of Gandhāra's Greek-influenced style. Rediscovered in the 19th century, Gandhāra has since fascinated historians, archaeologists, and art lovers alike. It reminds us that civilizations are rarely isolated. They are crossroads, where cultures meet, blend, and create something new. Gandhāra was one such place, a land of fragrance, of waters, of conquerors and monks, of art and faith. A forgotten civilization, yet one whose legacy lives on in the face of every Buddha carved across Asia.